This time of year is terrible for habit overload, where everywhere you turn, it's like someone's telling you, wake up earlier, journal longer, optimize harder. And basically, your morning routines start to feel like a boot camp or a full-time job rather than something that supports you. So if you've tried to be more disciplined and it just hasn't stuck, don't worry, you're not broken. Today in this episode, I'm going to be talking about adding the right habits, removing the wrong habits, and basically focusing on the habits that matter now, not the ones you're tired of hearing about. And today I'm talking about the habits that matter now, not the ones that you're tired of hearing about. And it's all about adding the right habits and choosing habits that actually will fit your life now, not you a few years ago, a few years from now, 10 years ago, in a different situation. You get the point. I want to make sure that any habit that you bring in is actually helping you to feel better, maybe have more clarity or feel more supported rather than things that stress you out, add more pressure, because that's not what habits are meant to do. Habits are meant, positive habits anyway, are there to help you to create better behaviors for yourself, a better way of living, and to move doing something from just a habit that you have to actually part of your lifestyle that you can maintain over time. Now, I'll be honest, I had a lot of great habits when I was younger. I also had a lot of bad habits, and it was easier to have a lot of good habits when I didn't have kids, especially young kids, and I could sleep through the night, and my when my time was more open, let's say. And so now that my kids are getting older, they're 11 and 14 now, there's this shift for me to I don't want to do all this habit stacking and pushing with habits. I want the habits that are actually going to help me now. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you've heard in a recent episode, I talked about intentional subtraction. And so I don't want to subtract all my different habits, but I want to make sure that the ones that are in are the good ones. So you've probably seen at this time of year so many people telling you what to do, what to bring in. You know, you might be seeing eat more protein, move your body more, or it might be write down your gratitude, drink 10 glasses of water, whatever it may be. Kind of this copy and paste habits or routines will often fail because the context of the habit and who they're for is more important than having the kind of hype or fad habits. See, what works for someone else may be completely wrong for you. And especially us women at different stages in our lives, there are going to be different things that are so important to you. Now, when I was younger, there was a lot of like ability to push my body physically and to do exercises that really stressed my body. But now that I've come into a different age, let's say a little bit of premenopause, perimenopause, that my body doesn't want to be stressed. And that all that's going to do, and a lot of you listeners, you get this, is just going to spike your cortisol. So what I want to make sure is that you're choosing the right habits for you. Comparison to other people will create guilt, not the consistency that you're wanting. So when you borrow someone else's routines, someone else's habits, you're often going to be borrowing or really adopting, inheriting their expectations too, which might not fit your lifestyle or who you are. Plus, I'm going to talk today about different seasons because different seasons of your life require different habits. As I said, a habit that worked 5 years ago, it might not work for you today, and instead it might drain you. So rather than having habits that don't fit your life, we want to pick habits that are easy to maintain, right? Because a habit that doesn't fit your life will be always hard to maintain, and we're going for consistency. I mentioned habit stacking. There is a danger to habit stacking. Let me talk first about what habit stacking is. Habit stacking is when you do one habit on another habit on another habit. I used to do this with the Miracle Morning, where they have something called Life Savers. It's a book, and the savers was silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing or writing. Now, this is a habit stack. I'm going to talk in a little bit about why this one is okay, but I'm going to talk in general why habit stacking is bad. Because adding more habits or habit stacking doesn't always equal more success. It can quietly turn into pressure. Because if you have all of these things that you're supposed to do, and maybe there's an order to it, and there's an amount of time, or maybe there's a certain number of pages or things that you're supposed to do, if you get thrown off or if you're slowed down in the beginning, then that's not going to be able to happen. And then these habit stacks are going to start to create in you kind of some self-criticism, self-judgment. And we don't want to have that because when you miss, if you were to even do like if you had 10 habits in this stack, if you missed one of them, even though you did nine, you might suddenly feel like the whole day is a failure or that you didn't start your day right or that you can't follow through, you can't come in. It's too much. So with the Miracle Morning, though, they have activities. So that's 1 hour, and that's sometimes doable for some people. For me, my morning is often get the kids ready, and then I get myself ready, and then I start work. Sometimes in there I do my devotional or my walk or whatever, but I don't necessarily have the amount of time or the desire to do that many things. What I'm doing now is I'm doing a couple things, but I'm doing them longer and therefore, in my case, better. When I used to do the Miracle Morning, though, and this is maybe something that you can bring on if you do have a habit stack in the morning or any part of the day, is to crunch the time if you're short of time. So, what I mean is, if the Miracle Morning set it out for six different things at 10 minutes each, and you realize you've lost half of your time, then now you can do 5 minutes each, and that's only going to be 30 minutes. And in some days, I only did 1 minute of each thing, and you have 6 minutes to do something. And what I found was there wasn't always that pressure to do all six things for 10 minutes. I was able to adapt it based on my day, right? So that's a good way to do it so that you don't fail or have days where you're just like, there's no way I can get through this. Now, there are common signs that you're taking on too many habits. If it's a habit stack, your routine feels just too stressful. There are too many pieces that maybe you feel behind by before the day has even started. And then you just keep restarting. So the next day you're like, okay, I'll do it today. And the next day I'm like, I'll do it today. And so there's some changes that need to be made. And the truth here, usually I give the hard truth, but here's some gentle truth for you. If your habits drain you, they're not supportive. And that's like I think that's a pretty easy thing to understand, right? And even if they're good habits, but they're draining you, it's not a good habit for you. So only do it if you can do it. And maybe reducing the amount of commitment to it would help more. That's where the habit stacking works with something you can reduce the time. Another way that I found habit stacking working, but it's more like pairing or connecting things that you do. So what if when you wanted to start doing more exercising or so many squats per day? What if as you brushed your teeth for that time, you were also squatting? Right? So brushing teeth and squatting, brushing teeth and squatting. What if you wanted to write down your gratitude or record your gratitude by like a voice to text? Could you do that as you're making your coffee? Do you see how you can connect or match onto something you already do, so a positive habit you already have, and you're linking this new habit or a habit that you want to bring in. One thing that I've started doing is because I'm doing this like read the Bible in a year thing, and I have a group of people that I'm doing it with. And so what I've decided to do is I can have it narrated to me, read to me. And so I've used that in the mornings as I'm kind of getting ready, but only if I'm able to pay attention and not for the whole time because I want to have that time to reflect. And I can't do that if I'm thinking about making my breakfast or whatever it may be. So that's around habit stacking and how to make it work for you and how it often just doesn't work. And that's okay. Really, we want to look at habits that support your capacity. And let's look at that right now. You might be able to relate to not having the bandwidth or the capacity for something. And when I heard that after my father died, that grief can kill your capacity and your bandwidth, I was like, that makes so much sense as to why I can't do all the things I normally do. So rather than having habits that are doing like this output, let's look at capacity, right? So we're going to shift that lens from output to capacity because we focus way too much with habits on productivity. What are we doing, and not enough on sustainability. So, what if you brought in some habits that restore energy rather than burn through your energy? For example, creating some sleep boundaries. So rather than a habit of negative habit, which I sometimes do, is that like last minute checking of emails on my phone or messages on my phone before bed. What if you removed that and had some sleep boundaries about when you turned your phone off, when you stopped work, and when you started to go to sleep? Also, another thing for me is I've had to have some boundaries for my sleep around no exercising before bed because I'd be too wired. I know that when I play soccer at like a 8 o'clock game, 9 o'clock game, something like that, I come home and I'm still going for another couple of hours because I can't wind myself down. Now, I'm all about multitasking. I love efficiency, but something like walking, and I used to walk with a podcast and I did walk at a great speed. But what if you didn't walk with anything in your ears just to have that mental break? Or what if you decided to walk slower as to not ramp up your nervous system, your cortisol, and just have a restful time? And what if instead of kind of being so strict or focused on habits around eating that you just ate to stabilize your energy? So that's restoring your energy. What about habits that simplify decisions? I like in the morning, if anything can be done before the morning, if I can make the fewer choices in the morning, that's better. So, setting out my clothes the night before, batching food in advance for my breakfasts, that is going to help you to make fewer decisions or simplify your decisions at a time when there are so many. How about having clearer priorities for the whole week? So rather than every single day, you're trying to say what's going to happen for your day. What if you kind of batched that or did that, planned that all out at the start of the week? And then you only included things that you're 100% going to do. And then anything else you do is a bonus. For example, I just started with a new client and we've been talking about her bringing some more movement to her life. And so she said that she wanted to start yoga again. And rather than saying, I'm going to have the habit of going to yoga every single day or 5 days a week, I said, how many could you 100% do? And she said two. And I think one week she did three, and the other week she did four. So she was able to go beyond what she had committed to. But that's simplifying things by planning it out in advance and only planning in the things that you know 100% you can do. Also, we need some habits to protect our focus. What if we just did one task at a time? I like to use Toggle, Toggl. Make sure all the links are in the show notes. But I like to use Toggle to tell it what I'm doing, replying to emails, writing the event description. And then I only focus on that. I actually did a podcast on this. It talked about time management techniques. And so we'll link that below. You can always Google Diane Rolston and Pomodoro technique, and you'll be able to hear more there. So that helps to reduce the noise and the interruptions from myself because I'm just doing that one task. And also using something called brain.fm. It's those like binaural beats. So it helps me to focus even better. So adding that in, using that is not actually taking any more time or any more energy, but it's giving me it back. And a key reminder, like output is going to follow your capacity, not willpower. So if you have only this much capacity, then what you can produce or your output is going to be connected to that, not how much you push yourself or will it to happen. Seasonal habits, picking your habits for the season. I mentioned before about after my father dying, being in a different season. And so I'm going to talk about the different seasons. So there's life seasons, right? There's business seasons, and you can just imagine the differences between them and where you're at. But in a previous podcast, I talked about momentum seasons and maintenance seasons. So momentum is like growth seasons when the business is growing, energetic seasons where you just have a lot of energy and a lot of creativity and a lot of gumption for whatever you're doing. And everything like is going well. There's also supportive seasons where you have other people around you that are supporting you to have the momentum. And then there are just times where you feel like, wow, the stars are aligned. Like this is going really well. And so that's when you can bring on more habits and have things more capacity and more output. And then there's maintenance seasons. Maybe this is when you're a parent, maybe when you're healing or someone else is healing, or you're recovering for something, or you're ill, or there's been a terrible diagnosis. This can also be grief. Whatever it may be, this maintenance is just a time to kind of like level out and just do the things that have to be done, or maybe do some things behind the scenes rather than pushing, rather than lots of output, because your capacity and your bandwidth is smaller. So your habits should reflect those two different times, right? You're not going to attempt to maybe run a marathon during maintenance season. You're not going to probably launch a new business during maintenance season. You want to do those in momentum. But you have permission to evolve. Permission to evolve granted to you. So you're allowed to change your habits as your life changes. So just ask yourself, what season am I actually in right now? Do I have high capacity, low capacity? Is it momentum season, maintenance season? And that's going to help you really to decide how many you can have or how many you need to cut. Speaking of cutting, it's important to just choose fewer habits, but choose better habits. Choose fewer habits, but better habits, right? Maybe there's just 1 to 3 meaningful habits that you could have, and that would have so much more power than doing 10 of them poorly, right? And picking habits that quietly support everything else. If you ask yourself the question, what habit would make everything else easier right now? Maybe it's going to bed earlier, right? So maybe for more energy, it's not doing more, it's an earlier bedtime. And maybe an earlier bedtime is going to help you better than a long morning routine, that the long morning routine is meant to get you focused and pumped up about your day. But if you just went to bed earlier, you wouldn't have to do that. Maybe it's that, as I said, the weekly planning instead of daily overwhelm, right? When you plan once, you're going to stop negotiating with yourself every single morning because it's already decided. Also, having support systems instead of pushing harder to multitask. So rather than saying, I'm going to do it all myself, you get help to do the things. And that can be in your life or in your business. And sometimes the habit isn't managing your time better, it's protecting it. And so maybe you get to practice some of the intentional subtraction. Basically, fewer commitments in your life could be the thing that beats better time management. If you learn to just say no more, you wouldn't have to have habits to manage your time. Isn't that wild? Yeah. And fewer habits that support your energy, they're always going to outperform the habits that demand it or the habits that you need to bring in to try to build the energy. Another example would be eating enough at lunch instead of afternoon discipline, right? You don't need more motivation, more willpower, more discipline. You just need the right fuel in the first place. Wouldn't that be much easier? Sometimes I get anxiety and I could add in all this breathing activities and more walks and I don't know, putting my legs up against the wall. But one small thing that I did was I heard that if you drink coffee on an empty stomach, then it can cause anxiety. So one small thing that I did was I eat my breakfast first. I'll have a herbal tea with it, have water with it, and then after breakfast I have my coffee. So sometimes it's just switching things around rather than having to add a bunch of things. Because you can imagine if I'm adding in the breath work, the legs up on the wall, or these other things, is that going to take me 5 to 10, 15, 20 minutes a day rather than just changing when I drink my coffee? So a little bit more intention around our habits can help us. The goal isn't to have this perfect routine where every area of our life has the best habits. It's more about picking and choosing so that we can have sustainable habits, right? Less can actually move you forward faster. Isn't that funny? And I just want to make sure for those that are thinking, I don't need to meditate, I don't need to do these things for my nervous system or to calm me or for my anxiety. Please, please do the things. I'm not saying don't do the things, and I'm not saying I don't do the things. I'm just trying to show you how you can change something small, some small habit, rather than adding on a whole bunch of other ones. So as I wrap it up here, I just want to let you know that, the best habits are the ones that fit your real life, the ones that you're actually going to do. And as you evolve as a business owner, as a leader, as a high achiever, your habits should also evolve with you. Makes sense, doesn't it? So you don't need more discipline. You just need alignment. Choose the right habits or delete the habits that aren't fitting into your life right now. Choose more habits for the life and season that you're in right now. And maybe try this out. Here's a little challenge for you or an invitation to take one habit off your plate this week that is not serving you and just notice, like, how does it feel? Maybe it feels a lot better. So choose habits that support you now. Choose habits that support who you are becoming. And these are the habits that matter now, not the ones that you're tired of hearing about or frankly not doing. Thank you so much about, like listening to this episode. I'd really, really appreciate it. If you haven't yet, could you please write us a review? And when you do, please screenshot it and then send that over to team@dianerolston.com with your mailing address so I can send you a little something special in the mail. Make sure you hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and until next time, stay dynamic. Bye.